This episode of the PC Perspective Podcast is brought to you by Zumper, the quick and easy way to find your next apartment or home rental. With 1 million apartments and real-time updates, you'll be the first to know when a new apartment hits the rental market. And with their one-click Experian-powered application feature, you can lock down your new home right now from your phone before it's gone. To try Zumper today, go to zumper.com/PCP. Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 369, being recorded on September 30th, 2015. I'm Ryan Schraub.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Malventano.
Man, everybody sounds so good now they got their new microphones and stuff. How you guys feel over there? You feel as good as you sound, or is it just fake?
My voice has a much more resonant quality to it. I can enunciate.
Yeah, your
7
Skype
words,
packets
practice
don't,
doing handstands in the living room carpet.
That's pretty good.
Wow.
All right.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah. Jeremy?
I could pick a peck of pickled peppers without popping once.
It's pretty
I
good.
think that microphone has improved his packets from Canada.
They have maybe decreased the packets from Wyoming, if that's possible. So anyway, let's get started. It was a busy week, and we left out a couple of things from last week, and then people add things in at the last minute. So all the show planning I go through and the hours leading up to it really means dick.
Yep.
So
You know what? You enjoy the
really
flexibility.
Appreciate it.
It fits in with the rest of your outside life.
I am not a flexible person, both in real life or in my professional life. So I don't know what to say about that.
You're somewhat flexible.
I don't. What?
Says the Submariner.
What? All right. Well, we got to start the show over. Hey, everybody. I'm Ryan Shaw. Welcome to the PC
He can hot
Perspective
bunk with the best of them.
Podcast.
It's amazing what he can do with that 6'3" frame.
So we do record the show on Wednesday nights at about 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific at pcper.com/live. And if you need a gentle reminder, we provide such a gentle reminder in the form of an email mailing list you can find at pcper.com/subscribe. It's very easy to get to. You go to pcper.com/subscribe. And do we not have that screen up at all? We probably don't have that. We'll keep going. You've seen the list before. It's not that big of a deal. It has a place for you to input your name and a place to put in your email address, and then everything works great, right? And we send you an email an hour. I think we actually sent the email quite a bit earlier today than normal. Let me minimize that. Oh, there we go. That page right there. And you fill out that information and we send you an email. It's pretty nice. So I actually, anybody that wants to offer feedback in the chat room so I could see it, would you rather have the email earlier like we had it today or like closer to 10 o'clock? Because that's something we debate about internally. I think it's interesting. Hey, on our Twitch page, we're using the HTML5 streamer.
Yeah, you can get the pop-out is now borderless.
Oh, interesting.
Cool.
Interesting.
Nice.
Interesting. Go online streaming stuff. Great. Fantastic. Earlier. Always earlier, people are saying. Okay, so we'll do that.
All right, we'll send it Tuesdays.
So, yeah,
The day before.
Tuesday. Don't forget, tomorrow.
Send one after the podcast ends.
Yes. Yes.
There we go.
All right.
So next week, we'll be having a podcast.
So last Thursday, before we could, I guess I teased on the podcast, hey, stay tuned tomorrow morning for more DX12 benchmarks. So let's just talk about that real quick. It's been out for a full week, so I don't know how much interest there is in kind of a discussion of it, because clearly everybody has gone to pcper.com and has read the story at least multiple times. Fable Legends benchmark was released last week, and it is a DX12 game that is very different in how it applies the DirectX 12 API than the other benchmarks we have seen. So previous to this, we saw the Ashes of the Singularity test. That is much more about how many units and things can we put on screen at one time. And how does the CPU draw call count affect that, and CPU performance overhead. So in that benchmark, we actually looked at CPU platforms more as a focus than GPU platforms. This is more of your traditional game. If you look at the screenshot here, it is a AAA title in terms of graphical fidelity. That is its goal, is to make it as beautiful and good looking as possible. And in most ways, that is kind of a I'm not going to try to play that video on this machine, actually, now that I think about it. But that's more traditional for AAA titles, right? They're Crysis 3, Metro Last Light, those types of games, they're less worried about how many things can I get on the screen versus how pretty can I make it. So that's kind of the primary difference with this. If you haven't seen the benchmark, if you go to our story, you can actually watch a 4K version of it that we were able to capture. Play it back at 30 hertz, or you can obviously play it back at 1080p if your system needs to do that. The other kind of main difference here is this benchmark does not give you a DX11 and a DX12 score. Like, it only runs in DirectX 12 mode, and you get one combined score at the end. That's kind of like the score they were pushing on us. Like, hey, look, this is the score that really matters. This 2,795 that you see on the screen if you're watching the video version here. That is... it's actually your frame rate times 100, if you're curious about that, like where that number comes from, your average frame rate multiplied by 100. And then you get an interesting breakdown of other things there. So like G-buffer rendering, dynamic lighting, global illumination, compute shaders, and all of those are in milliseconds, so lower is better in that particular instance. And that's an interesting breakdown of kind of like how much time the GPU spent doing each of those things. And we got interesting information like, hey, it turns out NVIDIA is better at global illumination, but AMD's GPUs seem to be better at dynamic lighting, which is basically everything else involved in the lighting process except the global illumination there. So there's a good breakdown of all that. Also, they provide an Excel sheet. You can see, like, it's like...
huge.
I want to say it's like 80, that's more than that. It's like 100 columns worth of information for each frame. It breaks down stuff like everything from frame time to GPU thread time to GPU time spent rendering fog is like in that. Like, it's incredibly detailed.
How
And
did
we
you
didn't
even export that picture?
I took a screenshot with my screenshot tool.
You had to
across the full two monitors, like
okay.
across two 2560 monitors. You can click on it to enlarge it and get a little bit more detail, but it actually goes even beyond that. That's about half of all
crazy.
the columns there.
But good.
Yeah,
us.
it's really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So we only did one platform. We used a Skylake system, but we used 8 GPUs this time. Tested 1080p and 4K. That was kind of a restriction of the benchmark itself. The general results are, they look something like this. The GTX 980 Ti is faster than the Fury X, but the R9 390X is faster than the 980.
Okay.
All right, so that's kind of like your higher end products. And if you look at the lower end products, the mainstream, you say the R9 380 is actually faster than the GTX 960, but the GTX 950 is faster than the R7 370. And those comparisons are kind of the price competitive comparisons.
But when you're saying faster or slower, just looking at the chart, it kind of looks like within just a few percentage points in like almost every case.
So it's about 10. Like the GTX 950 is 10% faster than the 370.
Is that really 10%?
Yeah, it's about 350 points.
Okay.
Yeah. But the Titan, the 980 Ti is 5.7% faster than the Fury X.
So it seems like
those
they're
are smaller.
They're trading blows back and forth.
They are.
Depending on which one you're looking at. Yeah.
You can see what's also interesting here is that the AMD cards tend to have more consistent frame times than the NVIDIA cards. This is all single GPU stuff, by the way, no multi-GPU.
Really?
So if you look at 95th percentile, the advantages that NVIDIA does have are actually a little bit compressed.
Huh.
And the advantages AMD has tend to expand a little bit when you look at the 95th percentile. And then here is a table, I won't go into a whole bunch of detail on this, that breaks down those GPU timings, right? So you can see if you look at the dark green bar right here, that is, which one is that? That's the, too far. That is the compute shader line, right? And that shows you that the compute shaders are actually running about twice as fast on the Fury X as they are on the 980 Ti.
Oh, okay.
Which is kind of interesting.
Man, that's a really detailed
to look at.
benchmark.
But if you look at the yellow line that shows dynamic global illumination, you can see that it's about 3 times faster on the 980 Ti than it is on the Fury X.
So that's breaking down each part of each frame and how long it had to take to do each
So
thing.
that's not free. That is an average of each frame.
Okay, but it's still breaking down like
Correct.
all the different parts of the engine.
And you can actually, if I wanted to go through that Excel file, I could do a per frame analysis. You could do 95th, 99th percentile on all that stuff.
The average is, it's pulling it from that, but it's just like,
Yeah. And then I absolutely cannot do that on this machine, but we introduced a new graph for frame times that is interactive, where you can scale and scroll and all that stuff. But this machine is I have like a ton of tabs open and already, so we'll leave that alone. But you can see we've got our frame times here. 980 Ti versus Fury X, fairly consistent. But as you get into the lowest end cards, like that 950 versus R7 370 comparison, you can see a lot more frame variance. 4K results, very similar. Everything's lower, but the kind of differences between the competing products are very similar there. You can see 980 Ti still faster than the Fury X, but the 980 still slower than the 390X. Or I'm sorry, yes, the 390X. So that's kind of where we're at with this. And it's really interesting data, and I encourage you guys to go look at these interactive graphs if you get a chance, because we spent a lot of time kind of developing it.
So do those numbers jive with the previous DX12 benchmark, or no?
Not really.
Because that one had issues,
AMD,
supposedly, right?
Well, no.
Or that wasn't really representative.
It's perfectly representative because it's a real game engine, and any debate about that is crap, right? So NVIDIA coming out saying it's not a valid or worthwhile benchmark is stupid.
What I mean is, out of these two now,
DX12 is a huge thing with many technologies in there, and the Ashes utilized a certain set that really hammered on certain aspects. This one is slightly different, and so it
this
utilizes different things inside the spec.
I guess what I'm getting at is
they're not apples and oranges, but I mean they're still all DX12. But the DX12 would be the orchard, and then you're throwing both apples and oranges.
Are they orange orchards? Is that what they're called? I don't think that fits.
Out of these two benchmarks, which one do we think is more representative of typical games that are going to be DX12? Which one is the oddball?
If you made me answer, I'd say Fable Legends, if only because it is a game engine that is more built around increasing visual fidelity as opposed to increasing realism through interactivity, multiple, hundreds or thousands of things on screen. I mean, the Ashes of the Singularity benchmark is an RTS, a very high-end RTS, and there's going to be games built on that. And Ashes of the Singularity won't be the only game built on that Nitrous engine. Mm-hmm. But I would say my guess is, especially initially, a lot of it will be more about how can we use the new rendering capabilities of DirectX 12 than anything else. If you look at some of these screenshots, looking at them on this page on the stream isn't really going to give you the full effect. But if you go to the story and click on these screenshots, they're really, really, really gorgeous. And this benchmark is again, I would say this might be less representative of a final game because there's no characters in it. There's no spells. There's no effects. There's no actual gameplay happening. This is really here's some scenes, and we're going to pan through them and see
got lots of objects and lots of lighting, and we have our own little GI global illumination that nobody else has, and it's gorgeous. But I'll be curious. This game is going to be out, I think, this year, at least in a beta form of some kind. So we'll be able to reevaluate performance at that point. This may actually be the first DirectX 12 game that ships to the PC. So we'll see. It's interesting. I don't know. We'll go from there. Real quick mention, I guess. Lee posted a review just today, actually. Nope, yesterday. I lied. Corsair RMX series, fully modular, 850 watt power supply. This is actually a completely new line of power supplies. It's not like they don't have enough lines already.
Yet again.
Yeah, this is true.
Those up?
I'm not hammering them on this, but boy, they've got a lot of power supply.
Look, when they get into a product segment, they go all out. Cases, check.
Yeah.
Keyboards, check.
Yeah.
Power supplies,
and dozens of models for each.
Well, it's all from this whole memory thing. I mean, back in the days of PC 100 SD-RAM, and then going forward with that with strange timings and numbers, and they've carried that over to everything.
The RMX series is now being added to the RM and RMI series. This one will be available in 550, 650, 750, 850, and 1,000 watts. These power supplies are equipped with fully modular cables optimized for very quiet operation and very high efficiency. They incorporate 0 RPM fan mode, which means the fan does not spin until it's at a moderately heavy load. All RMX power supplies are 80 plus gold certified for higher efficiency. So high quality components, all Japanese made electrolytic capacitors. Guarantees these power supplies to deliver clean, stable, continuous power even at ambient temperatures up to 50 C. and I don't know what I just clicked. So it's a fantastic power supply. I'm not going to go into all the evaluations. It got an editor's choice from Lee. Lee has probably reviewed hundreds of power supplies for us. So if you value anybody's opinion on power supplies, make it his and nobody else's, and go check out this review. If you think you need a unit. And like I said, it's 550, 650, 750, 850, 1000. So if you don't need 850 watts,
then get the 1000.
Then get 1000. Chicken. Do it. It didn't fit in a mini ITX case, right, Ken?
Yeah.
Moving on again. Speaking of Ken posted a little write-up here.
2 weeks in a row.
Wow. Look at that, getting productivity out of the kid.
Way more than Josh.
Oh.
Hey, today was my fourth.
Fourth what?
Article
like this year?
Drink.
Eat me. Eat me, I'm a Danish. Sing that to Falco.
So this was more, it's less of a review and more of a, hey, people are always interested in what we're doing here internally. Our editing workstation, previous to this upgrade, had been based on a Core i7 990X Nehalem 6-core 12-thread processor. Mm-hmm. It had 24 gigs of memory. It had a standard SATA SSD, a SandForce SSD. It never died on us.
We were fortunate.
And
actually, we replaced it.
Oh, we
made that out and replaced it
with a different SandForce.
Well, with the same same line. We made it and got.
So it was an X58 motherboard, 990X processor, which I think we decided was built in 2011.
Yeah, I think it's Q1.
Now, even though we have access to all kinds of kick-ass hardware here, the problem is we like stability.
Yep.
Right. So that's why I used the same laptop for a considerable amount of time.
If it ain't broke.
Right. And that's for the most part up until recently. We'll talk about later. Like phones kind of just go with what's there, even if I get a bunch of review ones in. And so that's what we had done on the production system. It worked fine for 1080p processing, which is what we had been doing this whole time. Mm-hmm. However, when we started looking at moving into 4K production, we borrowed a GH4 from B&H Photo, recorded some video, did a couple, like our Voodoo 3 unboxing video that was done in 4K. And we started to see very quickly that the system was not capable of really handling it. You could play back video, but it was stuttery. You couldn't play it back at full res. Scrubbing through the timeline was a waste of time, to be honest. It was horrible.
Slideshow.
Yeah. So we started to investigate different options. Ken looked at, hey, do we want to get an X99 platform with a 5960X, which is a 8-core Nehalem E, or I'm sorry, Nehalem E. Wow. Haswell E.
Nehalem E. Wow.
Creative process.
Right. But it was X99 based. You get all the connectivity benefits of lots of PCI Express slots, USB 3, and other things like that there. I guess USB 3.1 would have been an option as well. But the issue was we were worried that going from a 6-core to an 8-core system, even though you get these IPC improvements and you get clock speed improvements, maybe wouldn't be enough in terms of let's make this be able to be used for another 4 years or whatever. Right? So we ended up finding that we just happened to have, for reasons we won't discuss, a couple of Intel Xeon ES 2680 V2 processors, which are Ivy Bridge EP based. Mm-hmm. So they're architecturally a little bit long in the tooth at this point, but they each had 10 cores and they were hyper-threaded, right? So we had 20 cores and 40 threads of available processing here, just kind of sitting around like, okay, what can we build around that? We're looking at chassis, we're looking at motherboards. We have the same setup really as our streaming machine, right? It's an Ivy Bridge E system.
It's the next processor up, like 100 megahertz bump,
okay.
I think. But
and we have to use a huge case because it's the SSI EEB form factor.
Well, the only consumer case I've ever found is the Cosmos 2, which is what we're using.
Yeah.
Maybe like a 900D, but nobody wants that.
Yeah, like we just didn't. That one won't fit under our desk. Like we have this Cosmos case we have to sit out to the side because it won't fit under the desk.
But a 4U chassis on its side will.
A 4U chassis on its side will. So
but 4U chassis are loud, Alan. We don't want a loud machine.
Right.
That is a 4U chassis, though.
So we were talking with our friends over at Supermicro. I was like, hey, what motherboards do you have? We're looking at chassis. And he said, what about bare bone systems. Have you looked at any of the bare bone systems that we have? And they actually had one. This is the Super Workstation 7047A-T. It's a bare bones kit. Ships with a motherboard. Basically, it comes with motherboard, power supply, coolers, case. Obviously, everything pre-connected, everything pre-wired. You add processors, memory, video card, storage, and you kind of go, right? That's what the whole idea behind the bare bones is. It included in it the Supermicro Super X9 DAI motherboard. And it was, as Alan alluded to, rather, a 4U chassis tilted up, right? So if you look at the picture of it, it's very deep, like in terms of front to back. There's a lot of space there, which is actually nice for working in. But it also allows you to have like hot swappable fans and a whole bunch of cool things that you would normally get on server chassis.
Compartmented just like a regular.
Yeah, they sell a rack kit for this bare bones.
Oh,
you can rack it if you want to.
Okay.
But since it's
Is it
designed
filled
to be
with Supermicro super pipes?
no,
It is not. No, it is not.
but it is filled with throttled fans, like from the
So
factory.
you choke them.
They're not-
Poor fans.
They're fans. So that was one of the worries, right? Is you get in one of these bare bones systems that's meant for rack mount, and
You expect to hear 20,000 RPM
right,
fans spin up.
the rack mount server that Intel sent us years ago for storage testing at one point
That
sounded
was
like that,
allowed,
and we couldn't
yeah.
use it because it's like, well, look, we have one office room essentially, right, and we can't work in that type of environment. So we were pleasantly surprised with this. Everything was very quiet. The CPU coolers are quiet. The chassis fans are quiet. They're hot swappable, meaning like you can. They're in like a little holder. You pull it out. You don't have to worry about finding the cable. It kind of like just docks in place. Something that people who work in servers and workstations are more familiar with, and I really think should be something that enthusiast case manufacturers should really think about doing, right? Like Corsair, knowing that they have the chassis and the fans and all that infrastructure, why they don't have that capability. Because even in this one, the fans aren't really built that way. There's just like a plastic shell that holds the fan and then holds the connector for the power. In
It is a standard.
area.
That'd be a great way to try to lock someone into buying your fans too. So I'm surprised they haven't done it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and they've got this whole Corsair Link thing going, which might
they can just
handle
build right
this.
into it.
They're missing out on a branding thing there. They really should.
Let's cut this out of the show, and I'm going to sell it to them tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So the chipset on this is like X79 base, but it's C602, the Xeon equivalent. But that tells you where we are generationally. The coolers were fine in it. They're great. They have no problem. They keep things down. For storage, we wanted to use Intel SSD 750 series product, just again to keep things moving quick, scrubbing through 4K video, all that stuff. The problem was this platform doesn't support booting off of NVMe.
Yep.
So we had to install like a ADATA
regular
128 gig
SP610.
SATA SSD, into the system as a boot drive, and then use this SSD 750 series as kind of like the work drive, right? Which is fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's whatever. You install the applications to it, you install the projects to it, and boom, you're effectively doing the same thing. We upgraded the GPU to a Quadro. What is this? K5200.
Yep.
On this, which is a kind of a cut down Kepler GK110 base part, and then 64 gigs of registered DDR3 memory. So we got 20 cores, 40 threads, 64 gigs of RAM.
400 gigs of PCIe storage.
Yeah, 400 gigs of PCIe storage, plus some hard drives in there in RAID for longer term storage, that type of stuff. In terms of CPU performance differences, this is kind of interesting. So the blue lines here are single threaded. The orange lines are multi-threaded. Actually, interestingly, single-threaded, the Nehalem 990X is a little bit faster than the single-threaded scores of the Xeon 10-core part.
Is that just a base clock?
It's like a base clock issue, yeah. Like the base clock of the Xeons is 2.8,
Yeah.
and the base clock of the Nehalem is 3.4.
Yeah, it's like 3.56 to 3.85.
Yeah, very small
is the
turbo
range on that
I
product.
think that was the first processor to implement it.
It's like the first platform, at least.
But the reason for the
first-
difference is there's so many more cores on the other part that they had to drop the base clock. Yeah.
So, but if you look at multi-threaded, the score jumps from 804 to 2,515. So it's like a 3.2x improvement.
Scroll up a bit. Do I have that screenshot in there?
Yeah.
If you've ever run Cinebench, this is...
Is that drawing all tiles simultaneously, basically?
It draws a lot.
It draws a lot of tiles.
Usually that takes a while to draw that whole thing, and it's just drawing them all at the same time.
Yeah.
except for like a little ring around the perimeter.
So now, obviously, in Adobe Premiere, we don't get a 3.2x speed up. We took our 4K video project, ran it on both systems, and we saw like a 60% improvement in actual encoding time.
It's because it doesn't use all the threads.
It's only using like half the threads, and I'm not sure if it's a configuration issue or if it's maybe more of a.
I think it's just renderer.
Premiere just doesn't want to use more than 40 threads, which, damn it.
Well, it's probably
more than 20 threads.
Yeah, it's only using about 20. So, you don't really need...
we're looking into kind of sort of it being a NUMA issue and how it's the dual processors are presented as separate entities.
Even though we only get like a 60% improvement in the actual encode time, like now you can actually use the 4K video in the system, right? Like you can play it back at full resolution. You can scrub through the timeline. Like everything is definitely working much faster.
And we cut our time in half. A little more than half.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
In total, the value of all this is about, what'd you say, $7,000, Ken?
Somewhere out there.
The bare bones system itself is, I think, fairly reasonable at like $1,000, just over $1,000.
For the case with a server motherboard?
It's a case, motherboard, coolers,
1200 watt
power
gold
supply.
Power supply.
That's great for that.
Yeah, and it's, I saw some people in the comments say, that they don't update their BIOSes very often. It's
don't.
I mean, that's kind of server and workstation markets. Yeah, like they find something that's stable and then they leave it there. Kind of like what we're doing in general. The processors are still worth $1,700 a piece.
With server motherboards, generally when you buy server parts, even if for a lot of companies, even if like you're just one small customer who just only bought one part, like typically if you email them with enough info and feed that back to them, they might give you a one-off firmware for your specific issue. Like that tends to happen more for server parts than consumer. Like consumer, you'll have to wait for like them to roll out the next firmware, but that goes to everybody, right?
Somebody in the chat is pointing out here, Alex C. I don't know if this is accurate. He says $7,000 is about what a 6-core Mac Pro with 32 gigs of RAM costs. I don't know if that's true or not. That might be with 2 GPUs as well.
They're all 2 GPUs.
They're all 2 GPUs.
Yeah.
But I mean, the difference of a 6-core and a 20-core processing platform is going to be pretty dramatic.
Did that Quadro like play into the performance difference? I guess
we don't use a GPU encoding.
Oh,
we use CPU encoding. The GPU encoders tend to be problematic and lower visual quality.
Okay, so it was no effect.
The GPU kind of helps with what do they call it? The Mercury playback engine.
Yeah, it helps with real-time playback in the timeline. It helps a lot. Using CUDA for that.
Yeah.
But that does not play into the rendering results that we have in that article.
Right? Correct. So that's kind of where we're at now. So now we're prepared for 4K video. We still need to invest in 4K camera gear again. Yeah. It's just like, God, I hate paying for crap like that. But I do want to thank Supermicro. They did supply it. They gave us that bare bones server. So we do thank them for that. And then we were able to put our whole system together, and we'll be able to bring 4K content to you guys here in the relatively near future. And if nothing else, in the meantime, the 1080p crap renders a lot faster too.
Yeah.
So
we didn't put a stopwatch to it, but it's certainly faster.
Yeah. Everything moves nice. So there's that. So I have a whole story here I didn't even open up yet. Let's what are we gonna do here? We're gonna talk to Josh.
Me.
Oh wait, did the sadness come through in my voice? Because I didn't really want it to.
It came through.
Did it? I'm sorry,
It's
Josh.
a good microphone.
But nobody cares.
I'm sorry, Josh.
Yeah.
So, Josh, you have been looking into some of the debate and stuff around the new Samsung A9. Nope, hold on. The Apple A9 processor
that's made
derivatives.
Yes.
That apparently
Forks.
some are made by TSMC and some are made by Samsung.
They're forks, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So what do you got?
Okay, so the deal here, a couple of days ago, I think Chipworks released this initially, said the A9 comes in 2 different flavors, a Samsung produced and a TSMC. Now, Samsung's is the 14-nanometer FinFET, TSMC 16-nanometer FinFET. We've been hearing about these for a long time. Samsung has been producing 14-nanometer FinFET products with their Exynos, the latest line that came out in, March and April, with the Galaxy S6.
Yep.
And they were very, widely hailed as good parts. And these were really the first pretty decent-sized SOCs that came out in a process node sub 20 nanometer that we had seen from anybody. And so it was kind of a shock when these originally came out. Nobody was expecting it. Samsung did a lot of work in their foundries. They did a lot of good. Well, they did a good job in getting it out and working. It was so good that Global Foundries went ahead and licensed that technology, and they're trying to integrate that into, I think it's Fab 8 in New York. It's not going so well for them at the moment.
No.
Yeah, but I think they're kind of trying to shoehorn that technology into current machines, and it's it'll eventually work, but who knows? But back to what we're talking about.
Yes, please.
Previous years, when process nodes were not as technologically advanced, we would often see devices and designs go across multiple foundries. Certainly, things had to be done to get them all to work, but not to the level that we're seeing here, because Samsung's 14 nanometer FinFET technology is very different. I mean, it still is small. It still uses FinFETs, but a lot of the development between TSMC and Samsung was totally different. And so the structures kind of look the same, but a lot of the properties are different. So they've each got different standard cells. They've each got different design libraries. And even though the A9 part is not a huge chip and it doesn't eat a lot of power, it's still a complex endeavor to be able to go from one manufacturer to another when it comes to actually, utilizing an advanced process for these parts. And this tells us many things. One, Apple is got very deep pockets because they've got to buy new masks for each one. They've got to do low-level design work for each design. And again, I'm talking about design libraries. They're two different things. They've got different electrical characteristics. From the standard cell that Samsung provides as compared to what TSMC does. And we're not even talking about the custom work that Apple has done that is then reflected in each different design. And there's going to be different stuff involved in there that's going to take man hours, it's going to take money, and it's going to take time. And apparently Apple has...
They got money.
They've got these things.
And they have a very regular release schedule.
Samsung. But go ahead.
I was going to say they have a very regular release schedule that allows them to plan these things out.
Yeah, they know when they will have more money.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So the other thing that this kind of tells us is that there's not a whole lot of line space at either Samsung or TSMC that they can't handle a major company who is willing to fork out the money to get as much line space as possible. And when they get the answer back from each of the foundries and say, hey, we can't do anything near that, and they go into the boardroom and say, what do we do? Is like, well, we're going to have to lean on them both, and we're going to have do the design work to get these chips up and running on both of these lines. And not only do we have to have the basic design taped out, masks created, but also we've got to dedicate engineers to go there with the fabs, get some of the first products out, troubleshoot them, do changes in the metal layers, optimize how things are running in the process department, and get out working parts. And they're doing that for two different fabs, usually like AMD and NVIDIA. When they're releasing GPUs, they go with TSMC. And they've got engineers that are embedded in those in the factories, and they're doing all that work. Well, Apple had to hire more guys or split their guys or both and do one for Samsung, one for TSMC, and doing totally different work because the properties of the processes, while somewhat similar, are different enough that one design being photo-resisted over on another line is just not going to work. That's just not the way it happens. Too many variables in there, too many differences. And I mean, we're just at such a small level of features that any small difference is going to have major ramifications throughout the entire design. So Apple's spending a lot of money to do this. I'm real curious if they're just not eating a lot of space from both TSMC and Samsung, and other guys like NVIDIA and AMD are kind of left...
Probably pretty pissed.
Not real happy. Because it sounds like they're both leaning on TSMC's 16-nanometer FinFET Plus process technology for their higher-end GPUs that are coming out next year.
What kind of equipment do I need to duplicate what Chipworks does here in terms of figuring it out?
It would fill the office.
It looks pretty easy. Like, they just drew up some diagrams, right?
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, you just need an X-ray machine.
That's part of it.
And you got a razor.
Yeah.
Like a Bic.
Yeah, and some acetone. Just rub some acetone on top of the chip.
Yeah.
And a very steady hand.
The thing that's kind of interesting, we've talked about this before, is that Samsung has done a better job in size optimizing their process. But we don't know anything about the actual electrical properties of these products. We don't know which one has faster switching transistors. We don't know which one has the better power curves when it comes to performance and jacking up how much power is applied to the device versus what kind of TDPs we can expect out of them. And so far, nobody has really done in-depth studies on the iPhone 6s of each one to see which one draws more power, which one has better battery life. I'm wondering if Apple didn't kind of take down the clocks so that they're more or less equal in some of those things. So, somebody doesn't have, a golden sample 6S Plus versus, one that gets 2 hours less battery because it's running on a TSMC product or vice versa.
Yeah.
I'd imagine they're probably pretty close.
So Ken...
So it's interesting. We have
and Ryan.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Get those together. Find out what you got.
Alan didn't buy one.
Alan didn't get one.
Really?
So
he's a loser.
Ken and I, the two iPhone 6s we have, both are Samsung. The iPhone 6s Plus we have is TSMC, which sounds potentially interesting.
Suggests maybe that TSMC draws more.
No. Actually,
the data is available from that app. It is actually Samsung is in the minority of the 6Ss.
Yeah.
By a little bit. It's like a 60-40 split, and we ended up in the 40.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is we need a 6S that's...
Well, we
TSMC.
would like to have... we were thinking, it's like, oh, cool, now we can benchmark the two SOCs next to each other. But since they're in different form factors, it's especially on a mobile device where form factor and skin temperature and all that stuff means so much about the performance of it. Comparing a Plus to a regular is not...
it's an apples.
Like, you're not going to get a good apples to apples comparison.
Yeah. It's out of the orchard.
So, yeah. I could have gone. I guess I could have checked at the Verizon store. I could have gone to their demo. I could install that, right?
You could have.
Do you have? No, you have to. You didn't have to have an.
Nope.
You didn't have to log into the phone or anything.
Yeah, it's
an
privately signed, and it's an enterprise signed license.
So I think it'll be interesting.
There'd be a lot of cool stories if you engineers had a lot of cool stories about this. I'm sure,
trying to design two processors, at the same time,
and nobody will ever know.
Yep, no one will ever know.
I'll find out all about it in a couple of weeks, guys. Don't you worry.
Do you think the software that they use to do the layouts and stuff? Wouldn't you think it's evolving to the point where maybe everybody's using kind of the same main software with different setups for different fabs or something, where maybe it might be easier to port something over these days?
Stuff. They put out new stuff every year, and all of the designers they buy it for these horrific prices. Just because each year they do slightly better. Okay. But it's I love to say this word, it's not a panacea. If you want a well-performing part, and you can ask AMD and compare it to Intel with their products, because AMD does a whole lot of automated place and route versus Intel is mostly hand place and route, where they've got an engineer working 30 days on this PLL loop. And that's something that they
that sounds thrilling, just absolutely thrilling.
Yes.
Day 26.
It's just,
I connected this transistor to this diode.
It's brutal
in software.
In software,
and then
It was exhilarating.
And then I modeled it.
Oh, wait.
And so
that
that's why
work.
we see massive differences in efficiency from Intel parts and AMD, even though they may be using, well, at least in 32 nanometer. AMD has got a bigger part because the automated place and route just is not as efficient as that engineer in a closet working 30 days on a loop. So,
PLL guy. We call him the looper.
Send the intern to the closet.
All right, let's move on. This kind of leads us into our next story. This is an interesting one.
Is it?
It's interesting to me, and I think based on some of the comments and Twitter feedback and stuff, it's interesting to a lot of people in some ways. There's a lot of hate either side. So basically, I have been using an Android phone since, what did I decide, Ken? 2007?
January 2010.
2010?
Android did not exist in 2007.
Okay, so when did the first iPhone came out in 2009? No. Oh, wait.
2007, I think.
Yeah, it was around there.
And Android came out after iOS?
You used Palm OS in the middle.
Right, so I had the 3G, the iPhone 3G, and then I used Palm Pre, which was a damn good phone. I know Sebastian is listening, and it was a damn good phone.
Yeah. Palm OS stuff was nice.
It was, the first gen was 2007, second gen was 2008, 3G was 2008.
Okay.
You went from the 3G to the Palm Pre.
Yeah. And then I went
you went
to the HTC Evo 4G.
Yeah.
Is that the first one?
WiMAX.
WiMAX phone. And so basically, since that time, I had been exclusively on Android. As we move forward into this mobile world of testing, evaluation, all that type of stuff, it had been recommended to me strongly by certain people that, hey, you know what? It's really hard for you to be taken seriously if you're not using the biggest player in the game. If you're not using it, but if you're at least testing it and giving it a fair shake, right? People who only look at one side are generally looked down upon. So I thought, okay, fine. I'll take that challenge. And I bought an iPhone 6S.
Times 2.
Well, I actually ordered a 6S Plus first because I thought that's what I wanted, but then it said it was going to be 2 to 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
It only showed up 3 days later, but that's how that works. So I ordered a 6S and decided, okay, I'm going to switch my SIM over. I'm going to make this my only phone for the next 30 days. I'm going to force myself to move from the Android ecosystem over to the iOS ecosystem and see what it's like. Mm-hmm. What do I like? What do I not like? How is the transition? And then how much do I lose from the lack of openness in iOS versus how much do I gain from the security or kind of like the ease of use, all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's what I've been doing. I've been using this as my only phone since, I guess, it came out on September 25th.
Friday.
A week ago, right?
Yeah, so a week ago. It came out last Friday. Less than a week ago. It's been 5 days. Yeah. And so far, so good. And what we're doing is I wrote up one the night before the phone arrived. I said, okay, we're going to have this series, the Android to iPhone day 0, what to expect. And I talked about, okay, here's why I'm doing it. And I just kind of explained what that is. And, questions, both serious and silly, like how much am I going to miss having quick charge capability? That's something that these don't officially have, but they do seem to charge fairly quick. How many lightning cables am I going to have to buy to replace all the locations I have micro USB cables? Turns out the answer is quite a few. How do I access full resolutions of pictures? Am I really going to have to use iTunes again? All that type of those types of things. Turns out you don't have to use iTunes, which I'm eternally grateful for. So that was the first one. Was like, okay, here's the plan, and then I have one blog story, whatever you want to call it, up that talks about my first initial experiences. And I'm going to run through kind of like here. So I don't know how much I want to get into this versus having people go read it, right? So the unboxing, the opening, the getting it all started experience is very smooth. It's a little bit longer than I expected it to be. It asks you a lot of questions.
Yeah, because they want you to set up all the new stuff for your account. Which
they want you to set up your Touch ID. They want you to set up Siri. They want you to set up what else was it, Ken? They had
they basically wizard
iCloud backups.
Yeah,
all that type of stuff.
iTunes.
I mean, you go back to like.
No.
You go back to like the 3G, there was no wizard. There was just...
you turned it on.
You're just using your phone, right?
The phone.
Yeah.
But now, there's iCloud set up. For you, you didn't even have an iCloud account or anything like that. Or you did?
He has iPads.
I have iPads,
that's true.
so I had an Apple account.
But I mean, when you walk into it and you don't have any of that stuff, you have to like set all those things up.
Right.
So
I will say there was like a lot of like discussion about the fact that Apple released an Android app just a few days before the release. Was called Move to iOS.
That's true.
It was a great idea, right? It's an Android app that you install on your Android phone, and then when you get your new iOS device, they communicate and it copies all your data over. It copies your contacts over to your new iPhone. It copies your pictures, even your messages, your SMS messages, all your email accounts. All that stuff get copied over.
Good.
I can definitively say now that doesn't work.
It didn't work for both?
It didn't work for either phone. I tried it on this phone on day one, and I tried it like 10 times, and it kept just failing.
Yeah.
And it started on this a couple of times, but halfway through stopped. Less than halfway, 9% of the way through stopped. So maybe some people have had success with it. You can see, like, the idea of it is really cool.
Yeah.
It creates, an ad hoc network, Wi-Fi network, so they communicate that way.
Yeah. Just
as you can imagine, if you have like 30 gigs of stuff you're copying over, it would take a while.
That might be what's doing it.
Yeah, but it should still work.
No,
right?
I agree. Yeah,
it's very un-Apple-like to do that. Also, I find it funny that in the Android Play Store, the reviews for that app are like all 1 star. From people who have never used the app, all from people who are just like, I can't believe that Apple would put an app in here, blah, 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 all that stuff. I'd say my experiences with Touch ID are awesome.
Yeah,
so
especially
far.
on the new ones, it seems to like
it's
register
super fast
instantly,
and not having to use your password to install apps. Because like my Apple password is like 15 characters long or something like that. Yep. I can use my fingerprint to log into LastPass, which was my biggest complaint about LastPass on Android. Was every time I wanted to use it, it had timed out, and you have to use your, put your password in. If you save your password in the LastPass, it kind of totally defeats the purpose of the security of it. So I was like, okay, but now I can use the fingerprint, and it just works.
That is so cool. It just happened. Like, it just...
Yeah, it actually is too fast.
It's almost too fast,
that was
actually.
Ken's comment.
Because that's Ken's and mine. I don't have that model, but like just seeing like him do it, and I can totally relate. Like, there's plenty of times where I just want to see the home screen and just check it.
Accidentally,
and
I pocket. And
and I just like tap, like the home button to wake up the screen. Well, you almost can't do that at all without unlocking the phone, so you just miss your notifications. It just blows right past them.
I don't want to spend too much more time on this because I think you should go if you're interested in this topic. If you are one of those people who was like me, very much a diehard Android person who thought everything. Here's the secret. Who said that everything Apple did was the worst, but often thought they're doing some pretty cool stuff. I wish Android had fixed this, right? Like the fact that iOS 9 is kind of universal, right? And we don't have this fragmentation issue that you'd have in Android.
That's true.
Google just came out with this brand new fingerprint technology on the Nexus 5X and 6P, and it looks awesome. But like, only those two phones are going to have access to it for how long? And then how long is it going to take the ecosystem to take
who's going to make
it?
their app just to support the fingerprint reader on that versus what's on like all of the current shipping models, right?
I would say so far I have been pretty impressed with the experience. There's some things that are really dumb, like the
luxuries you had on Android.
For the Android fans that are probably hating me as they listen to this, the two things that I don't like about this for sure are there's no widgets, right? And that is the more I use this, the more useful I see widgets on Android, right? And also the lack of a dedicated back button. Is really disappointing as well. Like on Android, you have 3 dedicated buttons at the bottom, whether it be physical or digital, and it's back, home, and menu. And the back button always does what it says; it goes back. So if you're on Twitter and you click onto a link, like to a web page, it opens up a browser, and you hit back, and it goes back to Twitter. That's how it should work. And some apps do that well on this.
They've tried to weave that into iOS 9. That's recent. That what you're seeing in the upper left, where it's like back to whatever or back to whatever.
But the upper left, as I said on this is a smaller version. The upper left is the wrong place to put that because it is the hardest thing to reach on this phone, period.
Yep.
Right? Regardless, and then if you have this one, it's impossible.
Yeah. But they were kind of stuck. Like, if you notice, it's really narrow.
It's
like they had to squeeze it because they had to do it without like blowing up all the GUIs of all the apps.
I get it.
Right. They're kind of stuck with that.
But it's the wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know what the solution is for them because I know they won't add another button.
Right.
Maybe triple tap is back. Tap, tap, tap. I don't know. I'm just trying to think for him.
Triple finger
camera
force
works
touch.
well. Everything's those were the two things that really stuck out to me.
So I mean, there's goods and bads on both sides.
Yeah.
Just
and like I said, I'm going to post more. Like I have another one I'm going to write tonight or tomorrow morning about what has happened in the last several days for that. My opinions on the not being able to go back thing.
Right.
Actually, I'll give you a sneak peek of some of the topics I'm going to cover here because I've been keeping them in the notes file in this, which is maybe Apple might accidentally come in and delete everything.
They'll just select it.
Integration with my Pebble Watch is much less useful,
crappier than Android
on this than it was on Android. New contact syncing was a pain in the butt, like syncing it back to Gmail.
Well, I mean, not really.
How many times did I have to go back in and like it's not? It doesn't make sense for you to have to like disable that iCloud contacts thing in order
you didn't
for
want your contacts on iCloud, so you disabled iCloud.
Yeah.
Right,
contacts.
but I imported all my contacts from Gmail.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I go in to add a new contact. And it doesn't ask me where I want to save that new contact to.
Is there a default somewhere?
It defaults to iCloud.
Oh, yeah.
So I created one new contact since I've had this phone, and it didn't show up in my Gmail, right?
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's kind of weird, because it was on iCloud. So you had to go figure out how to turn off. If you turn off contacts in iCloud, then it kind of defaults to that. But yeah, there's a lot more stuff to talk about here. This will be, like I said, it's at least a 30-day experiment. Right now,
there is a default field for that, by the way, in the settings.
Is there?
For
I thought there was for new contacts.
You want the default account
in
on.
Settings, what part? We don't talk
Mail
about
contacts.
It's in there.
Okay. So right now, I'm leaning towards really liking it. And I think the most impressive part for me, honestly, as a longtime Android user, is this has a 1700 milliamp hour battery, and it lasts. It's got 35% battery left for me.
I mean, you've had phones with pretty big batteries, right?
The Droid Turbo I used before this had 3000 milliamp hour battery.
Yeah,
and that was why I bought it.
Well, didn't that go like a day or two for you, or
no? It was a full day.
It was a
little bit extra,
but so was that. But
right.
Even with the smaller battery?
I think this will probably be in general less. What would be more curious is the Droid Turbo definitely got less battery life over time as application rot, program rot, kind of like things are going on. So I'll be curious to see if that happens with this too. If I feel like, because I also feel like I'm doing the wrong thing, because every once in a while a pop-up will show up and say, hey, Dropbox has been using your location in the background.
That's fine.
Do you want to allow that? And I go, well, yeah, I think so, because like I want all the features of everything to work. But then I also am like, am I screwing up battery life?
No, I keep all that stuff on.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty good about like the only thing I've seen.
It's not like constantly keeping your GPS radio on or anything. It's a smart
Right.
API that does power saving things.
The only thing I've seen like location wise that will chew through a battery worse than like just having stuff use it is the Moves app. If you have it set to like, there's another setting that's like higher resolution.
Is that like
it's like a tracker,
like walk
like
pedometer and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was a setting that I think used to be the default that was like get much more detail as opposed to pulling it out of the whatever the other chip is.
Yeah.
For the movement stuff.
All right. Well, anyway, that is a ongoing series on PC Per that is called Android to iPhone. Day 3 is the most recent one up there. I will have one with day 5 or 6 or whatever it's going to be titled up there sometime tomorrow. So you can check that out.
I will say it's
an interesting experiment.
The most impressive thing I've seen on iPhones regarding application rot, or just having crap and like having to do like blow everything away and start fresh at some point. Like my phone is on the same series like carried forward backup of all settings from the first iPhone. It is on the same install, so to speak, as far as like the settings. So you're saying
is that you don't see any negative of that?
I have never had to blow it away. Cool. It has never like got to the point where I had to, All
right, we need to move on. We definitely need to move on. We are going to take a quick break here and thank today's podcast sponsor. That's right. This episode of PC Perspective is brought to you by, this is Josh's new favorite word, I believe, Zumper. Zumper.com. I don't know about you.
If you don't watch out, I'm gonna zump you.
I think
I'm a zumper.
I think that is a positive, because if you're going to zump me, maybe that means you're going to help me find a new apartment or rental home in my area, Josh.
Oh, is that what that is?
Is that
zump you on it is my wife's favorite hobby, so I'm an expert. at real estate.
If it's your wife's favorite hobby, you are clearly an expert. I agree. So Zumper is revolutionizing the rental industry by making it easy to find and apply for your next rental home from your iPhone or Android device. Look, you can find who knew? Technology is amazing, right?
Yeah.
Once you set up your custom filters, including how many bedrooms you want, the monthly price range, amenities, you can get real-time updates, so you'll be the first to know when a new apartment hits the market. This is actually really cool stuff. Once you find your place, Zumper offers instant rental applications and Experian-powered credit checks, making the process super convenient and ensuring that you get to the front of the line when you apply. They have over 1 million listings across the U.S., so if it's up for rent, it's on Zumper. And Ken and I, again, like we said last week or the week before, whenever it was, we validated this. He did a check in his area and found a bunch of places. You said it was like 20 or something?
30 or 40.
30 or 40 kind of places for rent in the area of Cincinnati that he lives. And even where I live, which is a very suburban area, there were 10 places that showed up, homes for rent.
This is with like your search criteria you put in?
I just typed in 41042, put in the zip code, and it's like, what's here? Like, give them my address, and it gave me some listings here. And obviously, if you live in a more suburban area, right, that
doesn't have
everything's going to change, right? But with over 1 million listings, that's pretty impressive. And this is, I think, one of the big. I don't know. It seems really cool for me. I am not currently a renter, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't directly affect me, but I know there are tons of people that are.
Is it good about showing you like pictures of the place
Yep.
and crap like that?
Yep.
And,
It honestly looks a lot like
real estate
like real
stuff?
estate listing, like MLS listings.
They're
Like you
probably
get a
just
lot
pulling
of
it from
you get a
MLS.
lot of detail about the space and the unit,
Yeah.
and it helps you kind of run down maybe some different options without having to go look at everything first, right?
The key to that stuff
looking
is
for ads in a paper. Whoever the hell does that still, I guess.
The key to that stuff is just making the search elegant.
Yep.
Right.
It does
like
that. It
narrowing
has
stuff down.
And I love the idea
right?
that like you can put in your criteria, and it keeps track of it and says, "Hey, we just found one. Like one went up for rent.
Oh,
Here's a notice."
That's
and like
cool.
they say, like that they'll get real time updates, so you will be one of the first to know about the new apartment hitting the market. Which is, especially if you live in a place like San Francisco,
oh yeah,
where housing is maybe in a crisis. That would be really interesting and good information to have. To get started and to find your new home, go to zumper.com/PCP. Mm-hmm. I didn't
Not
pick
to be confused with Zombocom.
Zumper. That's ZUM.
Zombocom.
ZUMPER.com/PCP. Zumper.com/PCP. Zumper, make your move. We thank Zumper for their support of the PC Perspective podcast. And we apologize that it happened so late in the show because of Josh's just ongoing discussion about the Apple products.
Ad nauseum. Well, welcome to Applecom. The infinite is possible at Applecom.
All right, it's running late. Alan,
I'll do this quick.
the Intel DC P3608 series. It's a 1.6 terabyte NVMe PCIe SSD, high density enterprise storage. It looks very similar to the enterprise storage that we've seen before.
So like one of these.
Those are
Ken,
P3700
put it back.
and
It's like
P3700.
So there's a pair of P3700s. This is a 3608. So each half of this is a little bit slower than a 3700 series, right?
Okay.
'Cause this is that's based on 3600 series, which are slightly derated.
Okay.
A little bit slower, right? But there's two of them.
No,
right?
that's one. He has one.
No, this is clearly
There's only one in your
SSD.
hand, but there's two logical devices in there.
You can't do that.
And there's a PLX chip and two 18-channel controllers and all that crammed into one.
Is this SSD SLI?
Yeah.
P3600 by 2?
It is. So the
Where's
challenge...
the bridge? Where's the bridge?
It's under
Where's
the
the bridge
It's
thing?
actually...
No, the one where I have the cable that connects.
no,
to the
no,
cable
it doesn't
from one to
work
the
that
other.
way.
Oh.
It's an external
That's
one.
the
It comes out the back.
all-in-one card SLI, Ryan.
Where's the
It's
DVI
like-
output?
It's... No.
What are we talking about again?
They had
Yeah.
to do an FPGA to connect to the other one.
They used a PLX chip.
No, he's talking about.
Oh.
We're talking about SLI.
He's talking about old
Anyway.
stuff.
sorry.
Old
It's
SLI.
Crossfire.
Yeah,
So
no.
this is essentially like, say you had the Radeon R9 295X2.
Yep.
It's two 290X GPUs on the same PCB with the PLX chip between them, kind of negotiating the PCI Express
Yep.
interface.
But for those, you lose half of your bandwidth for each GPU.
Yeah.
Because you're still in a by 16 slot, right?
Sure.
Well, these were only by 4 cards.
Okay.
And that is a by 8 card.
Oh, I see. So, okay. So if you actually look at the physical PCI Express connectors, it's hard to see. So this is actually, it's a larger...
Yep.
Okay.
So you're not really losing anything like
available bandwidth to the system.
Yeah, as far as bandwidth, right? You're just doubling the bandwidth. You're doubling the number of lanes. And the reason I did that is because you have people in enterprise trying to fill racks full of these guys, and each one is only using 4 lanes. It's kind of wasteful, right? It's like use more lanes,
more speed.
We need more speed. We need more capacity, right? Okay, so that's why this thing was born. And as far as specs, the specs is basically double of everything, pretty much.
So I'm looking at this table. This 1.6 terabyte model is rated at 5 gigabytes per second read.
Yep.
And 2 gigabytes per second write.
Yep.
That's a lot. So clearly you're essentially doubling the performance of the P3600.
850,000 IOPS.
So what's the magic to make that work, right? It shows up in the system as 2 physical SSDs. If you just plug that into a PC...
It is no different than as if you had 2 of
You're just
the older
compressing
style.
it into less physical space.
Yes.
So what are your options at that point?
The same options you would have had if you had a pair of 800 gig, say P3700s in that same system before.
So you
the options are still the same.
Access them independently.
So, yes, you access them independently. The assumption is that software that's doing those types of enterprise things don't necessarily need one volume.
Yep.
You can point them to multiple very fast volumes. Okay. Just give it a pool full of storage. Even if it's segmented, it doesn't really matter. So in that case, stuff like databases can be pointed to multiple of these. Stuff like a VMware server can be pointed to multiple storage pools if they're doing VMs, right?
Right.
So that's fine. It's just something you need to consider during the build. It needs to be segmented because there's only so much on each unit. Intel did introduce an RST-E, like an enterprise RST version that will RAID these now
in Windows.
Drives, in Windows.
Yep.
It's not like the Z170 stuff where it's bootable and everything else. It's just
different market.
It's different sense. Market. That's fine. And we did some testing on it. The short of that is you need to throw more CPU at it if you're going to use that. It's probably just more economical just to point your database at them individually than try to have one huge file and have a software layer try to RAID together things that are doing almost 1 million IOPS, right?
So what was the result when you RAIDed everything on that desk?
We actually RAIDed everything, and it easily went over 10 gig per second, and it hit a couple of million IOPS. And so it was actually the same kind of results we got when we tested the 4 SSD 750s. Actually, we tested 5, but we could only get 4 to negotiate properly in that one system when we did RAID.
Right.
Right. With when we tried Windows Software RAID, and that was crap, and then we tried some other stuff, and that was kind of crap, right? But talking to them individually, you can go really fast and have relatively low overhead. Anyway, so that's what it looks like. When we did our testing, we introduced new enterprise testing with this.
Yeah, so that's why I didn't really want to talk about it all. I could talk about the rating and all that stuff. Is there we first I want to say this is not a consumer device.
Nope.
How much is this?
That's a lot.
If you need to ask,
it's around $2 a gig. It's a little bit more
$2 a gig.
Yeah,
so we're talking $3,200, $3,000 bucks.
$220 a gig. That one is $3,500.
$3,500. So this is not something we would ever say, "Hey, go build a gaming PC and put this in there."
No,
right,
no,
this is
don't.
Definitely for enterprise stuff.
I've never been able to hold something in my hand, those $3,500 that easily.
Yeah, and they make something.
I can send you a couple Xeon processors.
So they make a 4 terabyte model.
That's true.
They make a 4 terabyte model in the same footprint for $8,800.
Okay, so don't buy that one either. So for the audience that this is targeted at, right? You introduced some new testing methods.
Yes. So before anybody starts complaining that, hey, where's my PC mark, or why didn't you RAID them together for this first review and give me just a drive letter and run games off of it,
right?
And, try to boot off of it and stuff like that. That's totally not what this is for. And if you're spending that much money,
did you have an AS SSD benchmark?
No.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Crystal,
Crystal Disk Mark?
Crystal Disk. Make sure you say that one correct.
Make sure you use the newer version that's for NVMe devices, right? Because, no. So any of those benchmarks, you got to throw them out the freaking window here because there's an enterprise SSD. It's rated. Its rating assumes you're accessing the whole drive. Mm-hmm. You're beating the crap out of the whole thing, right? Which is actually something that I have resisted for forever so far since we haven't done it. Like there's a lot of sites out there on consumer drives. They'll do 4K random to the whole drive for like, hours and publish that result. Like nobody in their system is writing 4K random in their Windows install, right? Like that's just not practical. Enterprise, however, you're taking a database and just pointing it at this thing, and that's all it's doing. There's no OS on it. There's just data, and it's just being like, it's like transaction processing. It's like people's bank stuff, or it's just databases getting hammered, right? You're not going to spend this much on this fast storage unless you're going to beat the crap out of it, and you're going to beat the crap out of all of it. So.
What are we talking about now?
Yes.
I don't. SSDs. Okay.
So,
yes.
I'm getting uncomfortable.
So what you do is all of these workloads we're doing enterprise it is touching the whole drive simultaneously, right? 100%. 100%. That's just for Josh. Okay.
The length and the girth of the drive?
The length and the girth, all of it, the drive is just airtight. Okay. Next. We're doing the different workloads that the drives are rated for, which corresponds with different types of database and OLTP and like even sequential. So you have 4K random, you have 8K random, you have 128K sequential. Okay, those are the three big workloads that's like covers 99% of anything that's
database structures and stuff
workload, right? So those results should cover pretty much anybody that comes to us and wants to know, hey, I want to use this drive for X. They're going to look this up. Okay, so to walk you through briefly how to get through these things.
Which graph am I looking at? I'm looking at the second one.
Okay, well, I would start with the first one.
Damn it. So let me do this before we go any further. I want to ask you this. We need to do a separate discussion video on.
We're going to do a video and add this to it.
Let's talk about what all this means. Mm-hmm. So don't feel like we need to do all of it here because of time constraints.
But the short version is. You got your workload.
Look at the first graph here.
Right? Which one are you looking at?
The first one.
On which page? 4K?
Yes. 4K, 100% random page.
4K, and then you look at this first graph.
So all this is one drive, and it's
just one
each
drive.
Line represents different Q depths.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So at scaling up Q depths, as you go across that graph, it's different % read and write.
Gotcha.
So if you got a database, it's 70/30, you look at 70% on there, and then you can follow that line straight up and see, Q depth versus speed of the drive and IOPS of the drive, right? Okay. IOPS is on the left, speed's on the right.
All right.
Like throughput. Okay. Now, if you scroll down to the next chart, that one is taking all of that data.
No, Jesus.
And it's adding in latency.
It's a tesseract.
I know, basically is. It takes all of that data, it adds in latency, and it kind of like rotates the data at the same time that it includes the latency. So now the latency is on the bottom.
Okay.
And the percents read and write are the different colors of the lines. Okay. So the idea is, say you're looking for your 70/30 again.
Yep.
Okay. So that's dark red.
Dark red. Got it.
All right. So you got a dark red line. Actually, you might want to go to the zoomed in version if you want to.
Oh, okay. I can actually, rather than just pinch zoom, I can actually see a zoomed version.
There is a zoomed in version of the chart. This chart is to show you the maximums.
Okay. Right? All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. This one looks a little easier.
And then the next one, even though it looks kind of like a New York subway map. So if you look at the dark red line on there.
Yep. I see it.
And you know that your workload is like, say, 80,000 IOPS. Is what your workload is going to be, right? Mm-hmm. You find 80,000 on the left, you follow it across, it intersects the dark red line at around 0.15 milliseconds of latency. Yeah.
So that's what you should expect for an average for any individual transaction's latency at those specifications.
Yep. And then you'll know that your Q depth will sit somewhere between 8 and 16 because they're marked off on there as well. That's where the Q depth would climb to. And Q depth is important because maybe your application only scales to a certain Q depth. Actually, it would hit a limit before something else. Right. So you need that data, right?
Okay.
So these charts, if you're just like a PC gamer and you're looking at these and you gloss over, don't feel bad. They're not for you.
How many dimensions is that graph?
There are 4 dimensions on that card. How did Helen fit 4 dimensions onto
like
a
I said,
two-dimensional?
it's a test rack.
Yeah. So I tried a whole bunch of different things, and like the whole 3D bar thing with layers of bars, just you can't actually read any of the numbers off of that. If you want to, people need to know what the numbers are. So this is the only way to get them all onto like a chart, right? It's a lot to look at, but it's there. So that's what all that stuff's for.
So we have one of those for 4 and 8 and 128K sequential.
Yep. And we're going to use those things moving forward for any time there's an enterprise review, SATA.
So I think I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
All right. And if you have more interest in that, go read the article. And then if you have more interest in that, we will have sometime, maybe let's do that tomorrow or Friday or something like that, where we sit down and record and we have a discussion about it. Maybe we figure out if we can get our glass dry board to discuss
walk through a few examples of if you're trying to look something up so you know how to use it.
So maybe we'll try to do that. Again, I would say as a gamer, don't invest in a 4 terabyte $8,700
Don't buy these
SSD
for gaming.
How much did you say the 1.6 terabyte version was?
$3,509.
That's how much I paid for my last car. With registration.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
And the car didn't go as fast as the drive.
No.
One of the. Oh, where'd it go?
I tried to load up all my games on Ken's car.
No, I'll leave it at that. All right. Okay. Crap. Here we go.
Moving on up.
You guys
Reset.
ready?
The reset button.
Logitech announced the G410 Atlas Spectrum TKL, which I will admit I only recently discovered meant 10 keyless.
By discovered, you meant Ken told you.
Ken told me. Which also apparently is all one word. 10 keyless.
Less.
10 keyless. Which basically means a keyboard without the numpad on the side.
Okay.
Right? The idea is you have a keyboard that is smaller, lighter, more portable. These are very popular in the gaming market, like especially if you have small desk space. You want to have more room for the mouse, less room for the keyboard necessarily.
Yeah, some people have those.
Yeah,
like
I am personally, I do a lot of typing into Excel, so number pads, very useful for me.
Yeah.
If you don't give a crap about Excel, congratulations, you're better off in life. And one of these keyboards might be better suited to you. I hear Jeremy chuckle over there because he knows I'm right. Like,
did you just see the charts?
If you don't have to deal with Excel,
if you've accepted Excel into your life, you've made a horrible, horrible mistake.
When Alan was making those 4K random graphs, 4-dimensional graphs, he had an Excel sheet open at full screen on a 4K monitor,
on a 40-inch 4K screen,
right, and it's funny when you see a copy and paste of data into it.
I still had to scroll.
Yeah, it was not great.
It's just bad.
So the G410 Atlas Spectrum 10 keyless, it's using the Romer G switches, the same mechanical switches that they use in the G910, but it has very different keycaps. Instead of I want to say it has like a thinner plastic keycap with this traditional concave.
It's a
dish form to it, as opposed to the G910 had kind of the faceted style keycaps.
Yeah, it was edgy.
Yeah, which I kind of liked. I don't think I liked them for a whole bunch of for writing, typing, essays, that type of stuff. But for gaming, kind of made sense. You can always find the middle of the key. You don't talk about mispressing off to the left, right, or whatever.
Yeah,
the edges of it was kind of interesting.
Slip off the keys.
But this kind of goes in the more traditional route. It has the Spectrum name on it, so it's full RGB compatible. Uses their software for color control and all that stuff. Sync it through headphones and mice and other keyboards. I guess if you had other keyboards attached, you could do that. It has one of those fancy dedicated buttons to turn off the Windows keys. The Windows key, I guess I should say. And yeah, so that's going to be for sale.
It's got that ARC's control dock again.
Yes.
Except this one's removable.
Yeah, which I actually think is kind of cool, right? So the ARC's control dock on the G910 just kind of like slid out a little bit from the top.
Yeah.
And it was a place for you to like set your phone or your tablet on that keyboard. And you could either use it just so you had quick access to your phone or tablet, or you could use one of their apps to monitor system information like speeds and feeds and memory usage and CPU clock speed. Or you could implement, if you use Logitech gaming software, some games would have...
do the readout thing?
Yeah, would do readouts on it. The one on this one, as Jeremy's pointing out, actually comes out completely, right? And then you can kind of put it anywhere on your desk.
Mm-hmm. It's like a stand.
Yeah.
It's like a device.
But it slides into the keyboard for you to like put it back, take the keyboard with you, store it if you're not using it, so it's not taking up space.
It's good pretty for nice. Like gamers that go to LANs and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. $129, available in early October.
Is the cord detachable on
the cord is not. I want to say it's not. Let me look at the picture. It does not look detachable.
Are there many keyboards that it is?
10 keyless is usually are.
Tend to be.
Yeah.
The $129 price tag is steep, but I think I looked up the Corsair Vengeance 10 keyless RGB is $149, so it's in the right range.
So they're both like cherry switches and stuff.
So this one is Romer G, which is their own kind of
same effect. It's a clone of.
No,
cherry, it's not really. It's different.
No,
it's a different key switch. They didn't copy the cherry. Key switches.
they had because they were selling
different.
the G910 before that.
But I mean, is the end result the same?
These keys are from the street.
They feel different.
Yeah, they definitely feel different.
They're more MX
I will say
red, I think, than anything else.
Okay,
closest proximity.
Yeah, they don't click at the bottom, right?
They do not.
Okay,
so that's like
reddish.
I will say I've had one of these for a few days. I've been using it. I've been writing the last couple of articles on it. And I like the keyboard a lot. It sounds very different than the G910. If you use a G910, the other Logitech Romer G, it sounds very different. And the difference is because I found out the G910 has a metal backplate on it.
Yeah.
This one has a plastic backplate.
It'll dampen more.
Right. So the metal dampens a lot more.
It's dampen more?
The metal is dampening more than the plastic. The plastic is there to make this keyboard lighter because it's supposed to be carried with you more often
louder.
or whatever. It's louder, but it's not louder than like cherry keyboards. Ken and I had a type off at our
we determined that my
K70 that's exactly all I was thinking too. I could just see like Ken and then Ryan.
My K70 RGB with MX Reds is just about the same volume as his
G410.
G410.
Yeah.
Okay. With not taupe rate.
It's interesting. I'll do another write up in a little bit with a video, kind of comparing the 910 and 410 because I think it's an interesting product. And I'm also only going to briefly talk about this because I'm going to talk more about it tomorrow. NVIDIA announced GeForce Now.
Oh yeah.
Which is the evolution of NVIDIA Grid.
Yep.
Which is online streaming gaming.
Mm-hmm.
It will be.
It kind of sounds like 3D Now.
It kind of sounds like PlayStation Now, which is a streaming gaming service from PlayStation, which is odd. So this will launch officially on October 1st. So if you're watching it live tomorrow, if you're watching recorded now, $7.99 a month. And they say it differentiates itself by having support for 1080p 60 FPS streaming. You have to have a 50 megabit connection to support that.
Okay.
Right. Affordability, $7.99 a month. You get a combination of kind of this 60 game roster of free games, and then you have these purchase and play games, which you pay full price for essentially, but you can stream them, and they will often, more times than not, give you a
Steam key
or GOG key or something like that.
Some equivalent so you can get a copy.
To download it on a local PC if you want to. So that's interesting.
It's not bad.
They claim it's the speed of access is something there, right? Like so. All games will load up in about 30 seconds, as opposed to they say.
Well, because it's on a server, right?
Right.
It's like,
well, they're like, okay, if you want to play The Witcher 3, it takes you this long to download it from Steam, or you can start it playing in 30 seconds on GeForce Now.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
sure.
I mean, it's
a
true,
one-time thing versus a
correct.
Start
30 seconds every time. Yeah. So there's that. The list of games is kind of interesting. So if you look on the right here, you'll see. Let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. The purchase and play games include a total of 7. Metro 2033, Metro Last Light, Resident Evil Revelations 2, Saints Row 4, Saints Row Gat Out of Hell, which is an expansion. Is it an expansion for 4?
I think it was standalone.
Standalone 2. Witcher 3 Wild Hunt and Trine 3 Artifacts of Power. Only one of those games would I consider new enough and AAA enough for me to
call it new.
Yeah, Witcher 3 obviously being on that list. If you look at the included games though, you got a lot of them there. You got Alan Wake's, you got Batman's, you got Borderlands.
MX versus ATV Reflex.
Yeah.
Gaz Gessler's Extreme.
Oh yeah.
Grid 2, Grid Autosport, a bunch of Lego games, great for the kids.
Psychonauts.
Gianna Sisters Twisted Dreams.
Psychonauts is awesome.
Yeah. Saints Row 3, Street Fighter Cross Tekken, The Walking Dead Season 1, Ultra Street Fighter 4. So there's 60 games on that list, and they're pretty good. Right?
But all of this stuff still applies to the whole streaming online, right? Like they still only have 3 data centers. Right?
I don't know how many I think they're up to 4 now. I think they might have added a 4th. So here's this table. I'll just point out. So here's the thing: is they made the announcement today. Yes.
Okay.
And tomorrow I'm allowed to tell you about my review of it. which is stupid, but whatever. I can tell you now that it doesn't solve the physics problem of streaming.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you're still a length from the servers.
We have a gigabit internet connection and a 29 millisecond ping to the GeForce Now server.
Okay,
that seems fairly optimal to me.
Yeah, but it's still 29 milliseconds you're waiting for a turnaround.
Round trip plus 29 there, 29
you have to double it. Yeah.
So there's going to be instances where it's not ideal. And I'll if you go to the website tomorrow, there'll be another article up that will talk about which games work, which games don't work in that case.
What it was like.
Whether I think the value of $79 a month is really worth it. I will say the biggest drawback to it, and this was part of the announcement, is that it will only play on NVIDIA Shield devices right now. So you have to have a Shield Android TV or a Shield tablet. I don't think the Shield Portable works with it. Maybe it does. I don't know.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I mean, it probably needs the hardware.
Well, it's only doing decode.
It's only doing
video decode on this side. Yeah. So that drastically limits its audience.
Yeah.
The number of people who have a Shield tablet or a Shield TV is minimal at best. So I don't know if they think they're going to push people to buy those devices with this service. I think that's probably the wrong direction. I think you need to try to make this service independently successful by offering it to PC gamers. It could be something about they're gating it for a specific reason to like, hey, let's send it to a wide audience first.
Yeah.
Or a small audience first before we send it to a wide audience.
Baby steps. Baby steps.
But I feel like they've been going so long with this grid beta that they took a lot of baby steps. Like they've walked many miles of baby steps.
That was a very drawn out baby step.
Yeah.
On the grid.
But like I said, more tomorrow and more on next week's show. Okay.
You sound excited.
Jeremy, you know anything about Quick Charge 3.0? Maybe LTE? Quick Snapdragons? I don't know.
I know that Sebastian likes living dangerously now.
Oh, really?
Oh, he's quite happy to let his phone go down to like 0.1% charge and then just slap this thing on it. Boom, it's back.
Instant.
Huh.
Yeah, almost.
So what do we know about Quick Charge 3.0? I know a little bit about it, but I don't know. It's a little bit faster. So Quick Charge, for those who don't know, it is the ability to charge your phone or device quickly, you might say.
At a higher voltage.
Than the standard
3.6 to 20.
Yep.
Oh, really? Up to 20?
Yeah, it'll ask the phone, okay, are you okay? Are you on fire yet? Are you on fire yet? Okay, I'll back it off a little bit.
Only a little bit of fire, please.
Yeah, only just a wee bit.
Yeah.
20 volts, huh?
Yeah, up to 20 volts.
That's impressive.
So that's interesting. The only chargers I've seen go up to 12. 12 volts, 1.5 amps. That's all Quick Charge 2.0.
20 volts is like a laptop power supply voltage.
It's a little more.
Yeah.
It's usually 19.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't say the amperage, but still. It's going to be nasty.
Yeah. My understanding with Quick Charge 3 is it's less about improving charge time improvements.
It's just more
versus
power.
Quick Charge 2.0. No, it's more about doing Quick Charge in a way that is more intelligent so that it saves the life of the battery.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not battery life, but the length of time that the battery is good. So basically what they're saying is they will charge heavier at certain ranges of the battery.
Yep.
Maybe it's temperature, maybe it's capacity, and back off on others.
It's a lower capacity you can get away with.
They still say on average that they're charging 10 to 20% faster on 3.0 than they did on 2.0.
Okay.
But they're doing it more intelligently to make it so that it doesn't kill batteries.
Basically, it would be like you would get your first like 50 or 70% faster.
Right.
Is what it would
As
end up
opposed to
being.
maybe like Quick Charge 2 now, maybe you get your first 90%, and they just like, you know what, maybe that's too much. We need to back off on some of that.
Like the part where you damage it is like topping it off quickly. Like you don't want to top off.
Get to that whole fire thing that Jeremy talked about.
Yeah.
And you can sing a song about it. This phone is on fire.
Yeah.
You could. And I guess, Jeremy, if you need super fast LTE that nobody offers service for, Snapdragon 820 will support all of that going forward. The new X12 modem in here.
It is true.
Fastest LTE to downlink speeds up to 600 megabits.
Yep. If you can find someone that'll serve you that fast.
Nobody does.
Literally no one ever.
Cat 13 on the uplink up to 150 megabits.
No.
Maybe more interesting, I think, than that is that this modem does support tri-band Wi-Fi, 2.4 gigahertz,
MIMO.
5 gigahertz, and 60 gigahertz for 802.11 AD, which is Y-gig.
Yeah.
In the intra room, high bandwidth.
Because that ain't going very far.
It's not going through like any walls.
Sheets of paper.
At this point, right? Which I think that's as interesting as anything else, right? The ability to set this down next to my laptop and have a gigabit connection wireless between them, I think would be really interesting.
I would much rather sync that way.
Yeah. And up to 4x4 MIMO on one downlink LTE carrier. Okay, that's it. So, okay. LTE-U, which is interesting. That's more of a... it uses the 5 gigahertz band, and it's for unlicensed usage of LTE. So say you go to a stadium.
Oh, for the little hotspot
they want to offer
add to the portable.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you could do like streaming LTE video, to your phone device without using Wi-Fi, and it's a little bit more efficient that way. So
it's cool.
This is apparently the 820, the Snapdragon 820, and let's see. Qualcomm claims the X12 modem is included in the Samsung Galaxy S7, apparently rumored, and around 30 other devices.
Yep.
So
they're all available at your store locally.
What's in that
next year?
Like right now. Yeah. Just like the service.
What's in that model of the new iPhone that's like better on AT&T or something? And
I don't know who makes that. Is that a Qualcomm modem?
Yeah, they use Qualcomm modems.
Yeah.
But is that this one or something?
I don't think so.
No.
This was just kind of being
being
announced. So.
All right. So this is brand new.
Yep. Hey, what else is good news? Skylake, apparently you can buy it.
Now, finally? They launched like a month ago.
That's what I read. That's what Scott read here. Or Scott wrote here, rather. That Skylake and Broadwell stock levels replenish. Both Newegg and Amazon have a few Core i7 6700Ks that are available for purchase. Let me click on this Newegg here in real time and see. I actually saw them in stock a few days ago as well. Maybe I didn't.
Hey, even Patrick bought one.
I saw them in person at Micro Center.
That's right.
They were on $105 on Amazon.
What about on Newegg? How much are they on Newegg?
It's a loading a little bit slower.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Okay, I'm glad it's not just me. Connection timed out. Way to go.
Newegg, what's wrong with you?
Everyone's buying 6700K.
This is good. Like we needed this, right? Think of how Asus and Gigabyte and MSI must feel. They made all these Z170 motherboards,
and nobody could buy the
processor for it. So this is a good sign.
I bet Intel sold a larger than normal amount of i5s.
I'm curious to know what that company was that gobbled up their whole stock right off the bat.
Yeah. So we saw, what was it? We saw like desktop Core i7 6700Ks in some gaming notebooks.
Yeah.
So
but that's not going to gobble up like their whole...
Clevo's not doing that much volume. Let's be honest.
That's true.
Gaming laptops are all over the place.
Jeremy, anything to say about either the Asus or the ASRock Z170 Mini ITX motherboards?
These are, if you're a small form factor gamer, pretty sweet boards. And in a way, it's almost up to you which one you prefer. They've got very distinct looks, but overall, they're fairly similar. They're, of course, going to be on the Skylake platform. They've got decent VRMs. Each of them comes with Wi-Fi AC. Both of them have an M.2 slot on the underboard, on the underside of the motherboard. If you were looking to upgrade to an M.2, they've both got 6 ports on them. If you go that way,
to get that in.
Yeah,
I have to. The ASRock is branded for Fatality, who amazingly is still actually selling branded stuff because I don't think he really plays much anymore, does Wendell?
I don't know what his gaming scenarios are right now.
League of Legends.
Oh, is it? Okay. So this one will come with the Fatality mouse port, which we've seen on a couple of other ones. It allows you to adjust the polling rate from 1 hertz up to 1,000 hertz.
I want my mouse to pull
1 hertz.
I want my mouse at 1. I'm just that awful. As of course, the other one does not. They both come with USB 3.1, one Type A connector and one Type C connector, which is nice to start to see coming out. And one nice thing about the Asus that ASRock didn't do is it's got the multi-user MIMO enabled radios on it. So if you're looking to use this as a little small server, this is probably the way to go. If you're looking for the gamer, the ASRock might be your better choice. But they are very, very similar boards. They look very different. So in a way, it's going to be your personal preference as to what they look at.
We have the MSI one. What's the model number of that, Ken? The Z170i
Pro, Gaming Pro AC.
Gaming Pro AC. That's one we're using for some mini ITX builds around these parts. And they're pretty awesome products, right?
They put a lot of stuff in that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're building really tiny ass systems that have mini ITX, Skylake, and R9 nanos in them, and they get warm, but they're pretty awesome.
But if you throw them into a lake, no bubbles would come out.
That's true.
They make toast.
Yeah, they're as airtight as they get. I know that.
And before I forget, the one nice thing about the ASRock, it's got 2 HDMI ports that do 4K at 60 hertz.
That's really awesome.
Yes,
I don't know why you need
it
two,
really
but
is.
that's awesome.
Oh, it's not many that can do that right now.
Yeah.
True.
That's impressive because they have to have a display converter
somewhere on that tiny little board.
That's right, because they're converting from DP to HDMI.
I don't know if there's one IC that can do 2 now, or if they have to
true.
shove 2 of those on there.
Huh. All right. It's maybe a little bit late on the show. We cut a lot of stuff off. So let's get into our hardware software picks of the week, everybody. My pick is interesting based on the change of phones that I've had over the last 5 days. But this is a Tronsmart branded, which I've never heard of this brand until recently, but it has a lot of...
And you bought it because of the name, too, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. I bought it because of a terrific bundle deal that I found. But this is the Tronsmart 3-port wall charger. What's just interesting about this is it has a quick charge 2.0 port on it.
The thing you don't need anymore.
The thing I don't need anymore because I have an iPhone. Now, it's possible that I may not like it and go get an S6 or something like that. You just never know.
That's true.
But, so this is $20, I think. Let me see here. Oh, yeah, and you can see here, this is the Qualcomm Quick Charge certification that they put as one of the photos on Amazon, which I think is actually pretty funny. But for $20, you get, it's 3 ports. 2 of the ports do 2.4 amps, up to 2.4 amps each. Yep. And then the third one does quick charge.
Okay.
And it's got the plug into the walls, like the snap down kind, so it like goes into a nice square. So if you put it in your bag, you don't have to worry about either those prongs scratching up stuff in your bag or...
Good for traveling.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's pretty nice. And they actually...
The last thing you need is a prong scratching up your bag.
Exactly. Exactly.
Or the other things in your bag.
This company also has a variant for car chargers, which has 3 2.4 amp ports and one quick charge port. So you have I have a car charger in my car now.
4 ports.
It has 4 ports on it, which is maybe a little bit overkill for a Chevy.
It's like a 40-watt car charger.
No, it's like 54 watts.
Yeah.
It's like a 54-watt.
You're going to blow your cigarette lighter fuse with your charger.
I mean, it's very possible. But yeah, the reason why I find it funny that this is my pick, I ordered all this stuff in, and I literally got it in 2 days after I've got the iPhone and decided I was only going to use the iPhone because the iPhones don't support any of the quick charge
But they
technology.
do 2 amps.
They might do 2.4, actually.
I don't know.
They do 2.0.
Our measurement device clearly doesn't work, but it's they seem to charge quick. I don't have any complaints about it in that regard. But that being said, for people who have Android compatible phones that use quick charge stuff, that's a pretty good deal, and because I know quick chargers used to be pretty damn expensive and hard to find at some point as well too. So let's move on down the list to Jeremy. What do you got?
Back the damn BattleTech Kickstarter. The more money you throw in, the better it'll be for me. but that's just a selfish little plug.
Yep. Okay.
Man, I miss MechWarrior and Mech Commander. But a long time ago, one of our contributors put up a review on how to build yourself a Plex server. And many people liked it. Some people offered their own ideas on what to do with it. And I found a little tutorial on how to set yourself up with Emby. So if you didn't quite like Plex in the way that it was set up, you suddenly found yourself hating Windows because Windows 10 doesn't support your nice little Windows Media Center anymore. This is another one to think of. Take a look at it. It is stupidly simple to set up. Look
at that user interface.
Oh, isn't it gorgeous? Isn't it utterly gorgeous?
Ooh, wget sudo.
Isn't exactly persuading
it's that
me
language
to switch from Plex. But maybe
it's like that test disk I had a couple of weeks ago.
Say that
it's not pretty, but damn it.
At least it has a nice web front end once you get it installed. That's fine. Yes. I can install it from command line.
And it looks like, I can't tell from this, but are those kitty cats behind that on the left-hand side?
Kitties.
Meow.
Something furry.
Yeah. Ooh, whoa. I'm going to go with kitty cats.
Oh, it does live TV, which Plex does not.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Really?
If
That's a
you've
big
got it
advantage.
set up right.
Well, yeah. But it has
And that
the
was one of the
capability
things
to
that
do
drew
it.
me.
Yeah.
Because I've got the Hopag card that I can't use anymore, thanks Microsoft. That just takes up space now.
Huh. Yep. Weird. All right.
Yeah, give it a shot. Josh.
All right. So, I've done this before, but it keeps evolving over time. Yes.
Wait.
What?
You already used this one.
Yes, but it has evolved and it's on sale.
Okay, go ahead.
Dirt evolved.
It's if you like Pokemon, it's now in its next form, not the final form, mine. They added Flying Finland as well as the other previous things that they did throughout the summer. Dirt Rally, 15% off, and that's not Finland. That's Germany. But anyway, if you go back one, it's a totally new series of tracks that are quite long. No, that's Pikes Peak, but I still love you.
Look, man, is it the first video?
It's going to be the one with the fall colors. There you go.
Okay.
Flying Finland. So the other day, Ryan,
Finland.
not Ryan. What?
Finland, the country where I'd most like to drive.
Oh,
Maybe.
Not too far from England and not too far from Japan or something like that.
There you go.
Yeah. But what's nice about this is that our good friend Alan posted a link to a video of some rally drivers going absolutely insane. Mm-hmm. And it was very, very fast through forested areas. And this is the area that they are, in fact, rallying through. Finland.
The video I posted was an actual rally driver.
Exactly.
Not in a game.
Not me.
Like actually toying with death of him and his navigator.
But that's
Are there moose you have to avoid?
It looks pretty in this video. I will not lie.
It is. And it's I've gotten many, many, many hours of enjoyment. And there are many hours to come because they continually add more stuff to this because it's still in early access.
Is there any chance that they made it so I could turn around and drive into the other people?
He's still on that.
I'm burning it all down.
When you start at the beginning of a rally stage, if you turn around and go the other way, there is nothing.
Hey, you know what?
We did those loops for a while.
Do you know the lead developer
emission test
of Dirt Rally? Maybe I can get a
Could you ask him
for you.
what you do for people?
Scirocco. Hey, could you put a green Scirocco?
Yeah, lime green.
And also allow it to be the only car that can turn around on a loop track and go the wrong way.
Well, if it turned around, it'd be in a puff of smoke from the.
It's not a TDI. It's not. It's not failing all the emissions.
It's not a
tests
diesel
here. I mean,
it's not a diesel.
All right.
Okay.
All right, Alan.
So I needed to extract this installer today, and I was looking around for something to extract something, and I came across something that looks a heck of a lot cooler. This is like a plug-in kind of based extractor thing.
I definitely that logo in the left-hand corner that is apparently a foot. I definitely saw it as a sinking Titanic when I first looked at it. So anyway,
so this thing is just called Universal Extractor, and when you install it, it's like there's a directory full of plugins, and he's been just adding to it like over time. So if you scroll down like the bottom quarter or so, has like a huge list of supported formats. So not only does it support like a bunch of installer packages, but it supports pretty much everything that's like a package of something that can be extracted.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When you install a utility like this, do you uninstall it when you're done?
They have a portable version of this, and that's all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there is also
with all the stuff that you put in, like all the things you suggest for your picks of the week, they're usually incredibly useful utilities. But all I imagine is you have 40 of these utilities installed on your system at any given time, and like when you right click on a file, instead of there being like 11 options,
just like that's why I have the 40-inch 4K display.
You're actually not far off.
Yeah,
no?
There's a lot of
That's
stuff.
why he has so many drives.
Well, he has DxO installed, so if you right click, he sees like a gigantic thumbnail of an image.
No, that's AC/DC.
Okay, AC/DC.
The other image that I have.
There's one I haven't seen in a long time.
I have been so diehard on AC/DC, man. They're up to like version 19 or something of that.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Oh my gosh.
So just it can extract pretty much everything that's like some kind of package format.
Interesting.
Seems helpful.
Yeah. Except, ironically, for the one type of installer package that I wanted it to do, right? But I will say that it said it couldn't do it, and then it told me the type of packager, because it pulled that out of the installer, and that was something I couldn't find anywhere else, like, Windows properties for the thing, and nothing was showing that to me.
Sure.
This told me what it was, and then I was able to find that, somebody else had written one of those.
Of course.
Could
you not have just run the exe and installed it?
No, because where I was trying to run it, the drive was not installed, and it was checking for it.
Oh, I see.
So it was saying, "Hey, I'm not going to install because you don't have this thing installed."
You just wanted the INFs out of it. I wanted
to see what was in them for the moment, right, without installing it.
Interestingly enough, for most self-extracting exe archives, if you
usually they're in your temp.
If you open them on a Mac,
you
can unzip them.
Really?
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Huh. You can't run it, but you can unzip it.
That's interesting.
It's very weird downloading an exe and right-clicking and unzipping it on a Mac. It just feels totally dirty, but most of them work.
Yeah, that's like...
Brian, install WinZip on your phone there.
It's not a Mac.
It's not a Mac.
It only is a little Mac.
It's iOS. It's same crap, right?
Yeah.
No, Tim Cook said they will never merge iOS and OS X.
Steve Jobs said that iOS was OS whatever.
Steve Jobs also said they won't do a stylus. So
Steve Jobs is dead.
It's true. It's also true. But he said that.
I checked.
I thought he was in that movie coming out.
It is about him. You'd think you'd get him to play him. All right, everybody, that is going to round up the episode because it's been going on forever. Do you think he dies at the end of the movie?
Spoilers!
Oh, yeah, sorry. Spoiler alert.
Too bad he didn't make music, because then he'd, of course, be a decomposing composer.
I just wondered if they end the movie before that.
I don't know, dude.
I don't know.
I'm never going to
tune in next week.
So I won't know. Anyway, that's going to be it for this week, everybody. Thank you for joining us. If you want to find more episodes, how to subscribe, you can subscribe through our RSS. If you want the MP3 downloads at pcper.com/podcast, you can find all that information there. If you want the video versions, you can go to youtube.com/pcper. We post the video versions there. And again, pcper.com/live if you want to come hang out, be in the chat room, interact with us before and after, and go through all the other rigmarole that is involved in that. So, being that it is late, we're going to end the show very quickly. And on that note, I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Valentine.
I always like at the end, Josh is still enthusiastic.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Good to the last drop.